CSIRO has confirmed samples taken from a mass bird mortality event in South Australia's southeast on Friday have tested positive to the deadly H5N1 strain of bird flu. It's the first mass mortality caused by this strain of bird flu recorded in Australia. There are now 74 confirmed cases in Australia, 54 in South Australia, 10 in WA, 2 in New South Wales, 7 in Victoria and 1 in Queensland. Federal Agricultural Minister Julie Collins says we can expect to see an increased number of infections during the upcoming migratory bird season. Greater crested terns and silver gulls are thought to be the most vulnerable species. But there are also serious concerns that that list will expand when the bird migration gets underway.
Whilst this is the first confirmed case of a mass mortality, and obviously a very concerning development, it is not unexpected and is certainly what we have seen overseas with this type of incursion of the H5. Sadly, we do know that once the H5 bird flu is spreading in wildlife and the natural environment, it is not possible to avoid significant losses, which is what we're starting to see now. There will be ongoing surveillance which will continue to determine whether the H5 bird flu is established more broadly in Australian wildlife, and will continue to inform the public where the H5 bird flu has been detected. Australians should expect to see more spread and larger numbers now of wildlife being affected.
There's no doubting, as we've been indicating for some time, that H5 bird flu does represent a serious threat to Australia's native species. And I want to level with people, this is the beginning of what is likely to be a long, difficult journey in terms of the impacts on wildlife, but it is one that we are well prepared for. The overseas experience has shown that we can't stop the spread of H5 bird flu among birds or among mammals. The reality is you can't stop native and wild birds flying around, and you can't stop wild animals moving around. And that will mean more mass mortality events like the one we have now seen. What we can do, and what we have been doing, is build up the resilience of the populations of our native birds and mammals.
Minister Murray Watt speaking a short time ago. Let's bring in David Claughton from the New South Wales Country Hour. David, just how worried are people in these impacted areas?
Well, I think if you were in Robe, for example, that's an important tourist town. People are very concerned. They would love their wildlife. A lot of them would be involved in walking the beaches, caring for wildlife. On Kangaroo Island, we had a reporter there last week. They've got species of seals that are quite threatened, and crested terns, which is one of the birds that you would have heard mentioned in the press release today, tend to hang out with those seals, and so that will be a way that the disease could spread to threatened species like seals. So I think communities would be very worried about the impact on their wildlife.
How much of the concern is it that this is going to spread inland?
Well, it is a concern because seagulls move inland, and a lot of these migratory birds would move inland to feed and to breed, some of them. And there has been a massive flooding event inland. I mean, it's an incredible time to go to the outback. And some of those places like Lake Eyre, for example, Cutty Thunder, they are experiencing an incredible explosion of wildlife. So that's amazing, that's great, but I suppose there's also the risk that some of those birds might go there and then you'll see a rapid spread of bird flu. But I think, there's still a long way to go before this unfolds, and I'm no expert on that. I'm just commenting on some of the things that we're seeing in the outback.
There is a risk, of course, that now this is moving in local wildlife, and some of these wildlife, including seagulls, as you would be aware, are very widespread across all Australian states and territories. They are found mostly along the coast but can also move to inland areas. But we do expect that this disease will now spread to other species which can also travel long distances. So there is a risk that, that this disease can move to inland areas, including important wetlands across Australia.
So, David, how might this impact poultry farmers and most in particular the supply of free-range eggs?
Well, it's really troubling for the free-range egg producers. I mean, there are different types, right? You can have chickens in barns that are called free-range because they have access to the outdoors. they might well be shutting those birds in. You need an order from your state government to do that, but that's a good idea if you want to protect them from bird flu if there's something going on in your area. And then you've got these pasture-raised chickens that actually wander around in the paddocks, and they just have little hens houses that move around the paddock. They are very exposed to wild birds flying over, or dropping into the paddocks, or their feces dropping into the paddocks, and they might only be a small percentage of the market, the pasture-raised. The free-range egg, I reckon that's about half of what's in the supermarkets now.
Okay.
So you might see some changes quite soon into the packaging. Like once they start locking those birds in, they can't really sell them as free-range, so they might have to change their packaging. And then in Victoria, we saw outbreaks of H7, which is a different strain to the current one we've got. For that outbreak, particularly in Victoria, but also New South Wales, they had to kill 2.4 million birds to eradicate that outbreak. They did an incredible job. It's all been cleaned up and we're back to normal production of eggs. But H5 is more virulent, and it's already in maybe 500 species of bird worldwide. And so this has a lot more ways of communicating around our environment. Will it get into our production systems? I think experience overseas shows that it will. But a lot of our production systems are still caged eggs, which is not great from an animal welfare perspective, but actually that's a more secure system, and it might enable us to keep getting a supply of eggs.
Okay, so what precautions should people be taking?
Well, I think the main thing is that you could walk bird flu in or out of a poultry facility if you've been somewhere where bird flu exists. So they will be shutting down their operations. They won't want people from the outside coming in. They'll be very careful about the movement of trucks and equipment in and out of their facilities. For the rest of us, we just have to follow the government's advice, which is, maybe don't touch those birds.
Yeah, don't
just
touch.
report them to the bird flu website, and hope that the authorities and all of those volunteers and the vets who are doing a lot of the frontline work can keep it in check at some level.
Record and report, I think the authorities are saying, and that bird flu website is birdflu.gov.au. David Courtin, thank you.
Thank you.